Hi, Mom.
Hi, hi, Deb. Hi, Momo.
Hi, hi, Grandma. Hi, Deb.
Hi, everybody.
Who's Momo?
I'm just going to ask that everybody say your highs, and then we're going to mute everybody so that we can all listen to Amy, and I'm going to start with an introduction.
Okay.
In the chat.
Okay. Everybody? Okay, so welcome everybody for coming to our first virtual baking class. We're really excited to welcome our special guest baker tonight, Amy Kritzer Becker. Amy is the founder of the modern Jewish cooking blog, What Do You Want to Eat, owner of the cool Jewish gift stores, ModernTribe, and author of the cookbook, Sweet Noshings. Sweet Noshings. And which we have a link on our website to this. Amy and her recipes have been featured in the New York Times, the Today Show, Food and Wine, and more. And she has spoken at events like SXSW and Nosh Berlin. In 2017, she appeared on an episode of Guy's Grocery Games on the Food Network, and she lives in Puerto Rico with her husband. I want to thank everybody who signed up tonight and those of you who purchased our kits. If you didn't purchase a kit and want to make a donation towards the cost of this evening, that would be fantastic. You can do that on our website. All of you who did sign up tonight have a 10% discount to Amy's ModernTribe store as well. So
I'm going to spotlight Amy now.
we're going to spotlight Amy now. If you have any questions during the demonstration, go ahead and put them in the chat and we will monitor that and we'll get them to Amy. Happy baking and Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining me today. We're gonna get started right away with the challah because the yeast takes a little time to activate. If you're baking at home, if you have a stand mixer and you want to use that, it's great for making challah, but I'll show you how to make it by hand as well. So I'm using the active dry yeast. I want to go over all the ingredients that you have first in your bag. So you should have the packet of active dry yeast. If you're using just a bag at home, it's 2 1/4 teaspoons. We have water, which I don't think is included, but you'll need warm water. So either you might want to get started on that now. My sink water gets warm enough. It should feel like a warm bathtub, about 100 degrees. If your sink doesn't get that hot, you might want to just stick a little water in the microwave or on the stovetop for just until it gets warm. You don't want the water too hot. You want to be able to put your finger in it and it's just a little warm. We have sugar. This recipe is a little on the sweeter side. So if you want it less sweet, you could use less sugar, but you might need a little more flour to counteract that. And we've got the eggs. There should be 5 eggs because we've got 1 large egg and 3 yolks in the dough, which makes it like extra eggy and rich and delicious, which I love about this challah. And vegetable oil and honey, and then the flour, of course, and just a little salt. So it's a very simple recipe. We're gonna get started right away. So you want to add 1 teaspoon of sugar to your yeast in a large bowl or in the bowl of your stand mixer, and that's gonna help activate the yeast. And then you're gonna add 3/4 cup of warm water. So I'm gonna go over to my kitchen sink here. I prepped some yeast ahead of time just a few minutes ago, just so I can show you guys what it'll look like. So I like to use, let's see here. There, it's like really bubbly. I like to use active dry yeast. Here, I'll get mine started too. Instead of instant yeast, because you know that it's alive. So instant yeast has a shorter shelf life, so it can go bad just in a few months, where active dry yeast lasts longer. And also when you activate it, like I know this is good yeast, but you could definitely use instant yeast as well. And you can also activate instant yeast. You don't have to, but you can do it so you know that it's alive here. So it should be bubbly and foamy when it's ready. It should smell like yeast. I really like the smell, so that's how you know it's good. It's alive. So there's no mistaking it. Let me check on my water here. That's good. And active yeast does take a little longer than instant yeast for the rising process, but I think it also comes out with a better flavor as well. So I definitely prefer to use that. But again, if you use instant yeast, you can use a little less because it's just more powerful. And I'm just gonna whisk up. I'm very short, so I'm sitting, there's a stool here. I might look taller on the internet, but it's not. I'm 5'2". So I'm just gonna whisk this up a little bit and then set it aside. Does anyone have any questions about the yeast so far? That's definitely an essential part of our challah process.
Can you slow down a little bit?
Oh, sure. Sorry. I can definitely do that.
So
So
we
far, all we've got is the yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoon, 1 packet,
One
1 teaspoon of sugar. Yeah. 1 packet, and 1 teaspoon of sugar and 3/4 of a cup of warm water. And that's just in your large bowl. And it should start to foam up like pretty quickly. It won't get this big. This will take about 10 minutes. It might take 15 if it's a little colder where you guys are. It's very warm always in Puerto Rico, so mine poops up very fast. Even with the air conditioning on, it's warm in here. So we'll just let that go. Any other questions about the yeast step? If it doesn't poop up, then your yeast might be dead. Sometimes that happens, and you could kill your yeast, sadly, if your water is too warm.
How much water?
3/4 of a cup.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you should have the recipe in your bag as well, if you want to refer to it. And there's also a little flyer about my cookbook, and there's a little coupon for ModernTribe, and there's a magazine. So there's lots of good stuff if you have that. If you're cooking this and you didn't pick up the packet and you don't have the recipe, you can find it on my blog as well. It's just whatyouwantoeat.com/challah. So you can get that is there as well. So I want to share a little bit while we're waiting for our yeast to rise. I'll wait like about 10 minutes to see how that goes. I want to share a little bit about how I started my blog and how my love of Jewish food came to be. I grew up in Connecticut in a very, I just call it like Jewish family. I went to Jewish summer camp. We went to synagogue on high holidays. We ate bagels on Sundays. And that was most of my, my Jewish upbringing. We celebrated the major holidays, but we didn't keep kosher and didn't go to synagogue regularly. So it was always a part of my upbringing, but I just never really thought about it much more than that. This town I grew up in had a large Jewish population, so it was just a thing that was around me at all times. And then I went to college in Georgia, in Atlanta, and I went to Emory, which is a Jewish school. There's a lot of Jews there, but definitely I was exposed to people from all different places, people who had never met a Jewish person before. And I realized since I was far from home, I couldn't always go home for the Jewish holidays. So that first year for Passover, it was in the middle of the week. I wasn't going to fly to Connecticut. So I thought I was going to host my own Seder, that I really decided I missed this part of my upbringing. So I called my bubby, and she's the kind of person where you're like, I think I'm going to take up tennis. She'll like go and buy a tennis racket and the balls and like everything you need. So I was like, I think, I'm going to cook Seder. Can you like send me a few of your recipes? And she sent me all her recipes and like some kitchen tools, and she was so excited. So that first year, I just had a few of my friends over, and I made brisket and potato kugel and just all the classics. We had matzah, of course, but we also had Easter candy because we were a very diverse group. So it was really fun. And I rewrote the Haggadah. I added some little jokes in there and stuff. So that was so fun that more people wanted to come next year. And by my senior year, we had 40 people in my apartment. Everyone had their own bottle of Manischewitz because we were in college, and it was just great. We were all sitting on the floor, everyone having a great time, and it really kind of was my first real like love of hosting Jewish events. And I realized that the people who weren't Jewish asked the best questions. They were like wondering why we did things that I hadn't even thought about, like, well, why do we have the 4 glasses of wine at Passover? Although we love it, why do we do that? So it was really like a great moment for me, and I got to like kind of interact with my friends in a different way and share that we all have guilt from our Jewish mothers and non-Jewish mothers, very, very similar. So after college, I moved to New York City, and New York was kind of similar to my upbringing in Connecticut, where there's Jewish people everywhere. So I kind of reverted a little bit to, just going to Jewish singles events and eating bagels on Sundays, but I didn't really do anything Jewish besides that so far. So I lived there, this was in 2005, and I lived there to 2009 when the recession hit. And my job, I was doing event planning, and we were doing these conferences for marketing professionals, and no one was paying to come to learn how to market when they barely had a job, if they had a job. So I wasn't laid off, but a lot of my friends were, and it just became kind of a depressing place to live at that time. It was already like hard when you're not making a lot of money, and it's just, you're young, and New York's a tough but fun city. So I decided to move again, and I looked at some cities, and I heard Austin, Texas was like a fun, happening city. And at the time, my friends in New York Austin wasn't on the radar yet. They didn't know of it as like the cool hipster place. So people asked me if I had to get a horse, and with cowboy boots, which I did get cowboy boots, but no horse. So I visited there one weekend, and it was October, and it was already snowing in New York, and it was warm in Texas. And I was like, all right, I like it here. And the boys are very tall. I was like, all right, I could live here. So I picked up and moved there and got a job working at a consultancy. And the job, it was a great job. I made some friends there, but it was extremely boring. So I, decided I wanted to do something a little more creative. And I had been reading a lot of blogs at the time, and a lot of, food blogs. And I had made some friends on the internet, and I decided I wanted to start my own blog. And at the time, I was doing a lot of cupcake baking. It was, this is 2009. Cupcakes were like the dessert at the moment. And I loved throwing theme parties for my friends. So I would have a theme party, like a 90s party, and then make some yin yang cupcakes to go with it. I was like, I could do a different cupcake every week on my blog. And I told my brother this idea, and I'm very like dreamy and artistic, and he's very practical, which is good. We balance each other out. And he said, that's a dumb idea. You're gonna get tired of making cupcakes every week. They might not always be popular. I'm like, no, what, cupcakes? But he said, what if you did Jewish food? And at the time I was like, what's Jewish food? And even now it's a little confusing, like what is Jewish food, which I'll go into a little more later too. And he said, ask your friends at work if they know what a knish is, or if they know what a bialy is. And of course, no one did. And I grew up very Ashkenazi, so these were the Jewish recipes that I grew up with, and I've definitely expanded my repertoire since then. So I was like, you know what, Andy Poo, I called him Andy Poo. I was like, I think you're onto something. I think I'm gonna do this Jewish food blog. And growing up, we always had this little joke where I'd say Jew for you. So I'd open the door and be like, Jew first, after Jew. And it was like a little like funny, like borderline wrong thing we would say. But I didn't think anyone was gonna read the blog. So I named the blog, What Do You Wanna Eat? It wasn't taken. I asked him to help me set up the URL, and I was off and running. So I wanted to stop for a second and see if anyone has any questions, how your yeast is coming. It should be, my new yeast here is all bubbly and foamy. Does anyone have any yeast issues? We can wait like 5 more minutes to get everyone's yeast up to speed. Any issues? No, everyone's good. Do you ever need more time with the yeast? Is everyone ready? Say something if you need more time.
Is our yeast supposed to be really liquidy?
Yes, it's liquidy, exactly. It's just, so the water makes it liquidy, and when we add the flour, it's gonna get less liquidy. So yeah, it should be here. If you can see my yeast, it's really liquidy, but it's foamy on top. So it should be foamy and bubbly.
Ours is not doing that yet.
Not doing that yet?
No.
Was your water warm?
Yeah, it was. I had it.
My same way. I'm starting over.
Yeah, my yeast that I got with the kit also did not foam, but I had recently purchased some yeast from Niblack, and I used that in addition, and it foamed right up. So the yeast that we got in the kit may have been, I don't know, old or something.
Did anyone's yeast work?
But this one is.
There was a few people's yeast work. It might have been, if you had
the kit and it worked.
And it worked? Okay.
Good.
It might take a little longer, honestly. I know, is it cold where you guys are? We could wait. It could take a little longer.
I can also tell by how it smells.
Yeah, exactly. If it smells yeasty, and if it's like starting, if it's not bubbling at all, if the yeast is still on the bottom and you don't see like any action happening, then it's probably dead yeast. But if it's like bubbling and foaming and smelling yeasty and delicious, even if it's not fully foamed at the top.
You should see little bubbles, right?
Yeah, you should see little bubbles, and then there's a layer, like this one's good. It's a layer of foam at the top.
A little bit.
This one's been sitting for a while, so it's like very yeasty. So let's wait 5 more minutes. We'll see. But if yours is like doing a little something, wait longer. If it's doing nothing, I would start over. It sounds like your yeast is not alive, sadly.
And don't forget the sugar.
Yes, if you added the sugar, definitely the teaspoon of sugar helps activate the yeast as well. So it's 1 packet of yeast, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 3/4 of a cup of warm, not hot water.
The recipe said a tablespoon of sugar. You're saying teaspoon?
Mine?
The one that Temple Bethel, this one.
Oh, what's it? It'll work. That should work even more. It's a teaspoon, but a tablespoon's fine too. But yeah, if you put a tablespoon in, it should be really probably even more foamy. And I just took that out of the sugar, so we'll just add, the rest of the 1/2 cup when you're doing it. All right, so I'll carry out my story a little. And we'll let our yeast work a little longer. So I started this blog, and I was thinking only my mom was reading it, and because that's all I knew was reading. That's the only person I knew was reading it, because she would comment on every single one of my posts with some kind of like Yiddish funny saying. She's like, "Oh, I'm kvelling, I can't wait to like try this and stuff." So I think all these like sweet funny things.
It's right there. Oh yeah, here it is.
And
okay.
If you wouldn't mind muting yourself.
Here is Aileen Phillips, so I'm gonna take myself out.
So she would comment on every.
Either do it on there.
Could everyone please mute themselves? Is someone on chatting?
I don't understand. Okay, I can get here, but I need some sound. So turn the volume up.
Okay, now I'm back. So, I started doing 1 recipe a week, and I started around Hanukkah time. So for Hanukkah, I was like, I'm gonna make some latkes, of course. But I decided I've never been one to follow a recipe exactly. So I was like, I'm gonna try something a little different. I'll do sweet potato latkes. And I was like, instead of applesauce, I'll do cranberry applesauce. So I asked my bubby for some more of her recipes, and she had a lot of her recipes are on, you may have recipes like this, on a little note card with kind of chicken scratch writing on them. And they're not even really a recipe. Like her brisket just is like brisket, season, cook, the end. I'm like, I don't know what any of that means. So I've never made a brisket before at this point. Now I've made a lot of briskets. So, she sent me these recipes that she had my mom scan and email them to me. But I needed to kind of figure things out a little on my own too while I was tweaking them. So I was, learning how to cook while I was playing with her recipes and tweaking them to make them my own. And I didn't know anyone was reading my blog. And then a few months in, I got this email from a woman who said, growing up, her mother was Jewish, but her father wasn't. And her mother had passed away when she was younger, and she never really explored her Jewish identity. And now that she was in her 20s, she was more interested in learning where she came from. And for her, that was to learn about Jewish food. So she found my blog, and she had made every recipe I'd done so far. And she took pictures of them and she sent them to me. So I'm at my desk, like reading this, like bawling. I'm like, this is so amazing. Like this is really meaningful. Like this is why I love Jewish food so much, is what I grew up cooking with my mom and my bubby. We'd make blintzes and cover the kitchen with pancakes, and rugla. We'd make dough and make dozens of cookies. So I have these amazing memories, and I can get to help other people make these memories. And this was kind of an aha moment for me, that I realized I loved what I was doing, and this was like really what I wanted to do. So I was at my desk at work, like crying, like, oh, and my friends are at work are like, oh, did your boyfriend dump you? And I said, no, these are happy tears. I think I've discovered what I want to do with my life. And he did dump me a few months later, but at the point I was happy. So I quit my job and went to culinary school, because I realized I was making no money at my blog, and you can't just quit your job and like cook all day. My parents would have not been happy with that, and I wouldn't have been able to pay for my apartment. But you can quit your job and go to school. My Jewish parents would never have been mad if I got more education. So I went to culinary school, which was an intensive 1-year program. And then I also on the side taught cooking classes at a supermarket, and I taught some kids cooking camps, and I did some demos at the supermarket. I had a microphone on and was like feeding samples to people, trying to get them to buy some sauces. So it was really fun and happy. And I also worked at a bar, which that was how I actually made money. But it was really fun and very intense year. It was a 1-year program that I did. I want to take another break and see how everyone's yeast is doing. Did some people start over with the yeast? Do we have some good yeast people? Anyone?
Yeah,
Anyone
I started over, but now it's working.
Great. Okay, that's good.
Same here.
Do you know what happened? Maybe it could have been, sometimes the yeast packets are just dead, which is why I like using the active yeast, because if you use the instant yeast you just mix right in, but you don't know if it's alive or not until you realize your challah hasn't risen. So this way you know if it's alive. You've only wasted a few minutes of your baking time instead of a whole challah. Does anyone need more time on their yeast? I think we're good. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next step. Again, you can use, if you have a KitchenAid stand mixer, you can use that, but I'm just going to show you how to do it right in the bowl here. So we're going to add the rest of the sugar, which is, so this is a sweet challah. I like my challah sweet. If you like your challah a little less sweet, you could use a little less sugar, but you might need a little more flour. So this is a 1/2 cup minus the 1 teaspoon or tablespoon that you put in with your yeast. And just mix that out. Put that in. And then we want our eggs. We've got one egg yolk, or sorry, 1 whole egg. And then I'm gonna put the yolks put the whites in the bowl here. And then 3 yolks. And to remove the whites from the yolks, you kind of just want to break it and then swing it back and forth, letting the whites fall out. You want to get as much of the whites as you can, but you don't have to get all of them. It's not a recipe where that makes a huge difference, but it'll just be like a little wetter. Get 2 more. These are, in Puerto Rico, we get these like beautiful local eggs. They're, and if you can, oops, I almost dropped that one. Okay. And you can see that they're just like very bright yellow, and I love them. Okay, so we got a little more white. And you don't want to add the salt in right on top of the yeast, because that can kill the yeast. Salt and yeast are not friends. So I've got my sugar, eggs, and now we want to do the vegetable oil.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry, I had somebody narrating here. How many eggs whole and how many egg yolks? 1
large whole egg and then 3 yolks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I like that. Like, this is a little different than some recipes. I like it. It just makes a richer, eggier dough. So there's definitely recipes that use just the whole egg, or maybe like 1 egg yolk. So you can kind of try different things and see what you like. There's a million challah recipes out there. And now we're going to do the oil. So here's a trick for the oil. You're going to do oil and honey, and they're the same measurement, because if you do the oil first, and you guys, if you've picked up your packets, the bags, it has the exact amount of honey you need in there, so you don't have to measure it. And then, so the honey, or the oil rather, I'm going to do first, which is a 1/4 cup of oil. Mix that in there. And then, a little more. And then when you do the honey, it's already greased, so the honey's gonna slip right out. I'm gonna do that, put it down. So that's a good trick, or you could always, like, if you're not doing a recipe with oil and honey, you could always spray it with a little bit of oil spray.
For those with the kits, you have 2 little honey jars, and that's exactly the amount needed for Amy's recipe. Yes.
Exactly. So you don't have to measure. If you have the kits, you can just dump the honey right in there. And now we're going to start mixing this just with a whisk. If you're using a stand mixer, you can use like the whisk attachment. If you don't have a whisk, you can just use a spoon. That is fine. You don't need anything too fancy to make challah. I'm just going to whisk, and you just want to whisk it just until the eggs are all broken up and everything's incorporated. How's everyone doing on this step? I'll show you what this looks like. At this point, we have the yeast, the water, all the sugar, the half a cup of sugar, 1 large egg, 3 egg yolks, a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, and a 1/4 cup of honey, and it is liquid of all those ingredients. Does anyone need more time on that part? Okay, so now we're gonna start adding the flour. And I like to measure the flour over a bowl. So then you know, you're not wasting any flour if you measure it over the sink, and it's just a little easier. And if you have the kits, I think you have 4.5 cups of flour. I usually need all of it. If it's a little cooler, maybe a little less. If it's a little warmer, maybe a little more. But I'll just start with about 3 cups. You don't have to measure it exactly, because with challah, it's really all about feel. Like, it's always a little different in terms of how much you need, depending on what the weather is like and time of day. Everything's a little different. So when it's humid and it's hot like it is here, I usually need a little more. So we're gonna do just about 3 cups to start. And then when you mix that up a little bit, you can add the salt, which is 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I like to use a good quality flour. I like King Arthur. We can't get that here. I guess I could probably get it online, but this gold is good. It's good too. So I'm gonna start mixing this with a spoon now. And if you're using a stand mixer, you can use the hook attachment. And I'm just gonna mix. So here it's still very wet, and just kind of wanna scoop it in together so you're not spraying the flour all over the place. And I like to use, usually I use bread flour. I know today everyone got all-purpose flour, and they're definitely interchangeable. You can use either one. Bread flour has more gluten in it, so it gives it that, when you pull challah apart and it's like stringy and delicious, it gives a little more of that stringy, gluteny texture. But all-purpose flour works great. I'm sorry?
How much flour did you put in?
I just started with 3 cups.
Okay.
If we have the bag, are we putting the entire bag, or?
No. I would start with like 3/4 of the bag.
Okay.
But you'll need more. So I mixed it up, and it's pretty.
Amy, do you ever use whole wheat flour?
I have a recipe on my blog that I use all whole wheat flour, and you can use that interchangeably. I will say I like the taste and texture better using half whole wheat flour. Yeah. So half kind of at the most, but you can definitely use whole wheat flour in this recipe.
What about using gluten-free flour? Not in this case.
I haven't. Gluten-free flour. Oh, there goes my book. Uses with yeast. I think gluten-free flour, like gluten-free, the all-purpose flour is better for. I'm gonna start adding a little more flour at a time here. You want to add kind of like another half a cup at a time, and then you want to keep mixing it until it's sticky, but not like super sticking to your hands when you put your hands in there. And to help it not stick to your hands, I put a little flour on my hands too. The gluten-free flour with the yeast recipes, it's better for like a cookie. Like I've done the all-purpose, that 1-for-1 gluten-free flour works really well in like rugula. It has just like a slightly different kind of taste, but it works well. But in challah, it doesn't work quite as well because of the yeast. But I've seen some gluten-free challah recipes out there. Most of them you need a mold. It's a very wet dough, so it's not a braidable dough. So I'm gonna mix this. I'm just gonna keep adding more flour until it should be a little sticky. You definitely want to err on the side of adding less flour than more flour. And even if it's like a little sticky, it'll get less sticky when you're rising it. I don't know, it's just some kind of magic. but you can't. It's hard if it's too dry. You can add a little more liquid, but it's better to add less flour and then keep adding more flour as you need it. There we go. A little more. I'm just gonna like scrape the sides, make sure I get all that flour too. And if you're using a stand mixer, you can just like let this go for 7 to 10 minutes. And you want your dough, it should be soft and a little sticky and really like look like fluffy. You don't want it to look dense. It's hard to over knead challah dough. And the kneading is very important. I'm sorry?
If it comes together in a ball like this, do I probably have enough flour?
Yeah, once it comes together in a ball and it's like, it can be like a little sticky still, but not like sticking to the pan and everything, then you're good to go. Then I would move it to your, if you have a board or just a table. More flour. And you can start kneading it. If you have a stand mixer, you can keep it in there and use the mixer to knead it. And I'll show you mine. If anyone wants to show me their dough, but really it should be, if it's a little sticky, that is fine. But if it's too dry, you'll know it because it's like kind of clumping apart a little bit. This is fun if you have kids too. You can definitely involve your kids in the kneading part. You know, everyone wash their hands, but it's the fun part. So to knead it, I'm gonna dump mine out here. A little more flour. And right there. So here's the dough. It's a nice soft dough, and you want to kind of pull it together, and then use the end of your hand here, the palm part, and kind of push it. So that's like the best way to knead it. And just kind of stretch and push. And you're going to do this for about 10 minutes. This is a good workout if you're doing it by hand. And if it gets too sticky, it's fine if it's a little sticky, but if it gets a little sticky, too sticky, add a little more flour. I add the flour about you don't have to measure, but about a tablespoon at a time. And then we're just gonna knead it and move it over a little bit. Any other questions so far? Okay, so I'll go back to my little spiel here. So I was living the dream, you know, working at my supermarket job, going to culinary school, which I loved. Like I got very lucky that my culinary school was people of all ages. There were 18-year-olds and there were 60-year-olds in my class, but they were all very passionate about cooking. There was no one there that like didn't care about cooking. So we were like really good friends, and it was just a really fun year. Add a little more flour. And everything was going great, and my blog was like getting more popular, and then people kept asking me to do different things, and I would just say yes. So, you know, I was in this small business contest that I entered, even though I had no business and wasn't making any money. But I entered this contest, and I was one of the finalists, and a national press release went out. So people, you know, started asking me, "Oh, do you do recipe development? I need some recipes for my website." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." So I like figured out how to do that, and I would take pictures, and my photography was getting better. And then, you know, some people would ask, "Oh, can you do like a video?" Like, "Oh, sure, I'll just figure out how to do a video." So it was a really fun learning process. And then one woman found my blog through Pinterest. So here you'll see I'm just like stretching and kneading here. And if it's a little sticky, it's fine as long as it's not just sticking to everything. She found my blog on Pinterest, and she asked if I could do personal chef work, catering. And I said sure. And I went to her house and cooked dinner for her family and her cousins and everyone. And it was my first time doing that. And she lived in this very fancy apartment. So it was kind of just a really kind of crazy year of trying new things. But after I finished culinary school and I was doing a lot of freelance writing, and I just felt like I was a little bit stuck. Like I was kind of a little bit at a wall. And my boyfriend for real broke up with me at this point, and I was almost 30, and I was like not making much money. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I should figure something out. And I'd had some things fall through. Like I had someone approach me about doing a cookbook deal, and that fell through. And then someone approached me about doing a TV show, and that fell through. And I was just feeling like nothing was going to work out. And then at that point, right when I was going to get a real job, I applied for the real job and everything. Someone contacted me for my cookbook, Sweet Noshings here, and said, "Hey, we want you to do a desserts cookbook," which was perfect because I had grown up definitely baking more than cooking. Any questions? Yeah. Definitely baking more than cooking with my mom and my bubby. So that was like very important to me, and they let me have creative freedom to kind of do what I wanted with the book. And it just seemed like it was like a perfect timing. So right around when the book came out, which came out in 2016, I had an opportunity to buy the store ModernTribe that I now own. I saw it was for sale, and the previous owner had started it about 10 years earlier, but was ready to do something different with her next stage in her life. And I went to my brother, the same brother who's very practical, and I did not think he would want to buy a business with me, but but I told him, I was like, the store's for sale. I think it could be really cool. I think there's a lot of potential to grow it. And he said, to my surprise, yes, let's buy it. So I learned how to run the store at the same time as I was doing my book tour. I went to 40 different cities. And that was really the best part, was doing this book tour, because I got to meet all these people that had just emailed me previously. I had all these like invisible internet friends, and they were like real friends now. So it was pretty incredible. And people who had said, I made your kugel for my mother-in-law, and so that's the first recipe I made that she actually liked, and so stuff like that is just the best part of hearing it. So okay, needs a little more flour. How's everyone doing? I haven't been paying attention to how long we've been kneading it. I think I've been kneading it close to 10 minutes, but you can tell if it's like very soft.
Is that ready to go in, do you think, to the bowl?
So it should, like, when it comes apart, when you like kind of stretch it out, you should be able to see, they call it like the window test.
Yeah.
So you should be able to like kind of see through it a little bit. And mine's like almost there. So that's like a way you can tell. But it also should be, like feel like soft.
Yeah. It does.
It feels soft and like it's just slightly sticky. It feels like light. Like it feels like, oh, this could rise. Yeah. Then you're probably good. But it's hard to over knead it. You can, but when in doubt, knead a little longer.
What if it's a little bit too dry?
If it's a little dry, add a little more water.
Okay, even at this stage where you've been kneading?
Definitely. Yeah, you can just add a little water. So if it's too wet, like it should be like it's a little sticky. I think that's good. Definitely that's fine. But if it's like really sticky to your hands, add a little more flour. And if it's dry, if it's crumbling or just like looks dry.
Well, I'm not sure. It doesn't, I can try the window test.
Well, if you touch it, is it like a little sticky? Like it doesn't have to stick to your hands, but just like be like a little tacky.
Yes.
Then it's good. Then you're good.
Okay.
And then I use the same bowl when it's ready. I just put a little oil, and that helps it just from sticking to the bowl, just like a very teeny amount. Maybe, I don't know, I've never measured, maybe a teaspoon. Yeah, that sounds right. All right. You want to?
It's sticking to the board. What do you need to do?
Add a little more flour if it's like sticking a lot. If it's sticking a teeny bit, like if you can still like remove it easily, but if it's like all over the place, I'd add a little more flour. Okay. But to mine, I put a little oil, and the oil kind of helps it. It's not sticking to my hands at all. So, and then, so this is what my dough looks like. Very soft, a little tacky.
Okay.
Has there any other questions?
Do we cover it or just leave it?
So when it's ready to rise, so if you want to bake this tomorrow, you can do an overnight rise in the refrigerator by covering it and putting it in the refrigerator at least 12 hours. And then tomorrow, when you're ready to bake it, take it out like 2 hours ahead of time so it can come to room temperature. And like it won't quite double in size in the refrigerator, but it'll still be good. So that's one option. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, tonight, cover it and put it somewhere warm. What I like to do is turn your oven on the lowest possible temperature. Okay. Mine's like 170, but I can see it going. Like when mine's like 105, I turn it off, and then I put the bowl in covered, and then close the door and just like leave it there for like 2 hours. Just forget about it. Don't forget about it, but don't peek at it. Don't like check under the hood. And then 2 hours, you can check a little bit. I check a little bit, but you can check a little bit and you can see. And I made some dough ahead of time because I'm going to show you some braiding techniques next that you guys can do tomorrow.
Okay.
What are you going to cover it with?
I cover it with just like a towel. So you can use some foil. I've used foil, just a spray a little oil or just rub a little oil on it so it doesn't stick. I just go like that, and it'll rise, and I'll show you the one that's ready. So this is the one that's ready, and you can see it was the same size. Dough in here.
The towel doesn't stick?
No.
Oh, good.
Towel doesn't stick. If it's really sticky, your dough, like I would add a little more flour. But that's why I put the grease, the oil along it so it greases it, and it won't stick. It'll stain your towel a little bit, so definitely use a towel that you don't care about. But you can also use some foil. That works well too. Okay. And with the foil, I like spray a little bit so the foil can stick a little bit. You could spray that a little bit. So here, so here's dough step 1, and dough step 2. Anyone else have any questions? How's everyone doing?
So if we're gonna put it in the oven to let it rise, do we still put a towel over it?
Yes, definitely want to cover it no matter how you rise it.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Because that helps it from drying out. So it'll keep all the goodness and moisture in there. So and the towel's like fine, and you can do foil too in the oven, but it's such a low temperature. It's you're not gonna. It's not a danger or anything. I don't think it hasn't been. That's what I always do. So I always turn my oven the lowest. You can also put it on top of the oven if you turn your oven on and the heat rises through. If you can feel that, you can just put it on top. That's another option. Some people put it on top of their dryer. Living in Puerto Rico, I can just put it on the table. It's pretty hot, like always. So I have options here too. How's everyone doing? Seems good. I said this is my first. I've done some virtual demos a ton, and I've done some virtual interactive classes. But this is my first class where I'm not like with everyone in the room. So it's definitely usually can go wrong and see everything. So, but it seems like everyone's doing well.
How did you end up in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
I'll show this all. Yes, good transition. So I'm gonna start. Thank you. So I've got my dough ready. This will be your dough in 2 hours or tomorrow. And again, you kind of sometimes it takes less time, sometimes it takes more time. Challah is like, just like a loving, alive thing that you have to kind of feed it. Sometimes it needs more flour, sometimes less flour, sometimes more time. So this is about 2 hours. Sometimes it needs up to 3 hours until it's like nice and flowy here, or fluffy. So this is the fun part. Everyone's a little stressed this week, so you get to punch your dough down, which I enjoy. And I'm gonna start. Now this challah, it shouldn't be sticky. If it's sticky at this point, you can add a little flour, but this is like perfect. It's like stretchy dough. I'm gonna turn this over. And I'm gonna do a 6, and you don't need any flour usually. I'm gonna do a 6 braid braid today, just because it's like something fun to show you. I actually usually do a 3-strand braid because I don't know, it's just like my classic. And the 3-strand I like to do also if you're gonna stuff it. Sometimes I'll stuff it with things. I just have one that's a spinach and cheese one I did recently that was really good. That one actually I did a turban, which is like a 1-strand one for Rosh Hashanah. But that one I shared again today on my Instagram. But I'm gonna do a 6 braid one. And you wanna break your challah into 6 pieces.
What do you usually stuff it with?
So that was that spinach and cheese one was one I did recently. You can do like more sweet ones like Nutella, like kind of like a babka style. I've done that before, or like a different kind of chocolate filling, cinnamon sugar. You can do like really like any kind of creative thing. You can do. I've done like ones with like actually like different like different cookies. I did like a cookie stuffed one with like some cookie dough. I've done some different vegetables like like caramelized onions I've done with some everything bagel spice. That's really good. Kind of like a bagel inspired one, I suppose, with caramelized onions. So I did a latkes stuffed one for Hanukkah last year. So I fried up some latkes and then put that in there with some sliced apples. And I did like a sour cream kind of mixture in one of the strands. So that was really cool. So you can get very creative. And then you can also, once you've mastered the challah, I'm just going to measure these to make sure they're about equal. You don't, this is optional. So once you master challah, you can make some like different kind of flavored challahs as well. I have one on my blog that I've done a matcha challah.
Now, when you stuff them, well, actually, could you explain how you stuff them?
Yes. So I'll show you one of the strands here. Let's see. Usually I'm better at making these equal. Okay, this one's 5.8. 6.3.
How much are they weighing, each of the
These are
braids?
about 6.3 to 6.5. That one's a little light. That one's, let's see, so I've got 6.2. That one's 6.2. So I'll show you what I do for the stuffing one. And I have some pictures on my blog of this too. If you want to refer to it later.
Okay.
So again, so this is has gluten in it, and gluten can kind of, it's like kind of a tricky ingredient to play with, because you want to roll out, you want to roll out your strand, but gluten can kind of make it come back. So you can see that I'm rolling it out and it comes back. So sometimes when I'm rolling them out, you want to let it relax a little and then come back. So it's a patient process. And then I'll roll these out kind of long and thin. And this recipe, you can make 2 smaller challahs. If you're doing a 6 strand, I would definitely use the whole recipe. But if you could do 2 turban ones, 2 like 1 strand challahs, or 2 3 braid challahs. So if you're gonna, turbans, just like if you take, I'll show you, just like 1, and then you kind of just like wrap it around like that. One strand. It looks like a hair turban. I guess that's why they called it that. But that one I love for Rosh Hashanah. It looks really beautiful and it's so easy. And you could stuff a 1 strand one too. So you want to roll out your challah dough and then you flatten it out.
Okay.
And then you put your stuffing in here. And then you kind of pinch the sides up and pinch it closed. And that's how you can stuff them. And you want to make sure they're like pinched closed well to keep your filling in there.
Okay.
And then you want to err on the side. You do something like chocolate chips. That would be really great. You want to err on the side of more filling than you think you need. It'll seem like a lot, but then the bread is going to really expand. So maybe you have like this many chocolate chips, but then the bread's going to kind of expand around it, and it's not going to feel like as many at that point. So I'm going to just roll all of these out for the 6 strand braid. And I'll like roll them out, and then I'll come back and roll them a little more. Like I'll just start each one, because the gluten makes it a little tricky to roll it all out at once, which is fine. But usually like maybe it'll take me like 2 times. And I'll taper them a little towards the end, which will help when you're braiding. It won't just be like so much dough at the bottom when you're done with it. So let's see, where did I leave off on my story? Oh yeah, I bought a store and I came out with a cookbook, and things were going well in my life. And I was traveling a lot, which was fun. But I still didn't have a nice Jewish man in my life, and I had dated most of the Jews in Texas, I felt like at this point. I was living in Austin, I'd gone to San Antonio, tried Houston, Dallas, but so my brother, who now we owned the store together, and I was doing all of the marketing. And you want to, when you're rolling this, kind of like use the palm of your hands and like spread it a little while you're rolling it. So just gently roll it and spread it out a little bit too. And the longer you make them, you'll have a longer challah, but like shorter braided pieces. You want them all about the same too. So yeah, my brother he still had a full-time job, but he was helping me with SEO and data and all this stuff that wasn't as interesting to me. And then I would do the social media and the marketing and the emails and the shopping, which is my favorite part. I get to buy all this like really cool stuff, and I have a lot of menorahs now, which is good. My mother's very proud. So I was like, he was living in San Francisco, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move to San Francisco. I'll spend some time with my brother. We'll like work on his business together. We've always been very close, so I thought it would be fun to be in the same city as him. And worst case, we'll like work on this business together, and that would be great. And best case, maybe I'll meet a nice man. And I found out later San Francisco is not the best place to meet men because it's more men than women. But luckily, it worked for me. So within 6 months, I met my now husband on a dating app. And a few months later, his job gave him a job opportunity in Puerto Rico. And we'd only been dating maybe like less than 6 months at this point. And he kind of came to me and told me that, well, first he told me like one day this might be an option. And then a few weeks later, he was like, actually, they want me to move there now. I was like, oh, he's like, but I don't want to go without you. Will you go with me? If not, I'll turn them down. And I was like, oh my God, this is serious. This is great. So I said, sí, vámonos. And luckily I speak some Spanish. We joke, he speaks like food Spanish because he knows every food word and can order in a restaurant, and which is a very essential skill. But when we have someone like, over to help us fix our air conditioning or something, I can handle that with my Spanish. So that was like a really crazy adventure we took together. We had, we weren't living together in San Francisco. We moved here, found an apartment, bought a car, found furniture. Okay, so all of our strands are rolled out, and now I'm gonna put them all together here. There, we didn't do the best job. Okay, and you want to roll them together or put them all together. Actually, I'm gonna move this cutting board because it's in my way. I need more room. I'm gonna spread out. Okay. And so I'm gonna try to taper them a little bit at the top and bottom. So we like, had to buy furniture, like all this stuff that it's kind of a cool adventure to do together. We got to do together. So we've been here 2 years. We got married a year ago, so it was a success. And it's been very fun living here. Definitely better not during pandemic times, but like there are worse places to live than the beach right now. So right now for the first step, I'm gonna put all the strands together and pinch it at the top. I'm gonna pinch it nice so that it all sticks together. And I'll show you this as I go. You wanna take the one on the left, all the way on the left, and then put it under the one all the way on the right. So you're just like switch the places of the far one and the far one. So you're always gonna be dealing with the far one on the left and the far one on the right, and then the second one. So now after you switch places, you're gonna take the left strand and put it in the middle. And now you're gonna take the second from the right and put it onto the left. And then you're gonna take second from the left, second from the right, put it on the left, and then the far right in the middle. And then again with the second, so you do the second from the left, and then the left in the middle, and then the second from the right, and the right in the middle, and then the second from the left, and the left in the middle, and then the second from the right, and the right in the middle, and then the second from the left, and the left in the middle. And as you get a little closer to the bottom, it's a little harder. You do the second from the right, and then the right in the middle, the second from the left, and the left in the middle, second from the right, and the right in the middle, and it's kind of a little hard in the bottom. And then you want to tuck it under. So you get this like adorable challah. So basically you want to do a pattern when you're doing the 6th strand. And there's a ton of videos online. I have one on my site. There's like a million you can find. And you can watch it while you're doing it. And I would say that's the easiest, especially the first time. So I'm gonna put that there. Make sure that the ends are tucked under. Okay. Then I'll go there. So you always want to do second from the right, left in the middle, second from the right to the left, the far right in the middle, second from the left to the right, second from the left in the middle. So sorry, it's a little confusing when you're not doing it. But anyway, so here we go. Our challah is ready.
Looks nice.
And then you're gonna have this rise again, at least 45 minutes till it's doubled in size again. So I usually just leave mine out. You don't have to put it in the oven again, because at this point you want to preheat your oven to 350. So I'll like cover it. I usually put it on my stove top, and while the oven is preheating, it'll make it kind of warm. At least 45 minutes, maybe an hour if it's cold where you are. It might take a little longer. So we'll pretend I just did that, and it's bigger again, even though it's not. It would be. And now the very important egg wash. So this one, another trick is that I just use the yolk and a teeny bit of water. So I'm gonna, so we use a lot of yolks for this. People are like, what do I do with the whites? I know. But the yolk gets the ultimate shiny coating on your challah. So it's really worth it to just do the yolk on the outside. And so do the yolk, and then I'm gonna add just a teeny bit of water just to make it spreadable. Just like the teeniest amount, just so it's not like too thick when you're brushing it on your challah. If you don't have a brush, I'm a mess. You can use your fingers like carefully, but a brush is a good kitchen tool to have. And you're just gonna make sure you get it in all the crevices here. And I'll usually do 2 coats. Sometimes I'll even do another coat like halfway through baking too.
Amy, if we're leaving it in the fridge overnight,
yes,
what is the process to let it come out of the fridge and be room temperature? And then when do we punch it down and shape it? And then when do we braid it and then do that again?
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so you're either gonna rise it on your stovetop in a warm place for about 2 hours. If you're doing it in the fridge, that's a cold rise. So you're kind of doing a different step. You're gonna rise it in the cold temperature, which works instead of doing the warm temperature. So you're gonna keep it there at least 12 hours, at least overnight. You can do longer, up to a day, a full day. And then you're gonna take it out at least 2 hours before you wanna braid it. So, you know, about 3 hours before you wanna bake it. And let it come to room temperature, especially if you're somewhere cold. Let it come to room temperature, and then proceed as normal. And then you're gonna braid at that point, and then let it rise for another 45 minutes to an hour, and then you're gonna bake it.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And yeah, so I'm doing this egg wash right before I bake it. And at this point, you can also add some fun ingredients like cinnamon sugar on top. I'm gonna add some everything bagel spice. That's my favorite. I'm gonna go get it if I can find it. Or some sesame seeds. Oh, there it is. We don't have Trader Joe's here. Like last time I was visiting my parents in Connecticut, pre-pandemic, I picked up a few of these, but I used to make my own because before Trader Joe's had it, I would make my own everything bagel spice, but now I don't have to. So it smells so good. And that is my challah. So this one, I kind of did a little out of order. I'm gonna have mine rise for another hour. And my other dough, I'm gonna do the fridge rise. So I'm gonna have 2 challahs tomorrow, which is very exciting. So I'm gonna cover this and put it in my fridge. Does anyone have any questions about challah or other recipes, or Puerto Rico, or The Bachelor, which I'm watching? Any questions at all?
The other thing I wanted to know, if you do the overnight rise in the refrigerator, if you're using half whole wheat and half bread flour, is there any difference, or is it the same?
No, it should be the same. It won't quite double. It won't look quite as like poofy as mine did here doing the warm rise, but it should definitely rise when you're doing it the overnight in the fridge. But wholly, it'll act the same as bread flour or all purpose for that step.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Is everyone's dough looking pretty good? Can't see you guys.
Yeah, Amy, I want to know what it was like weathering those awful hurricanes and how you guys got through that.
Yeah, we weren't actually here. So we've been here 2 years, and Maria was 3 years ago. Okay. So we moved right after Maria, but it was definitely still a big thing. You know, like we live in a nice building, and our lobby is still not fixed for Maria because they're waiting for insurance money. You know, you see the effects of it. You see there's still like blue tarps places. So we've been here 2 hurricane seasons, and knock on wood, have not had anything major. We have storm shutters we've put up, and I never lived in Florida or anywhere else with hurricanes, but we were not here for that. But you know, some of our friends we've met here were here, and it was obviously horrific. And you know, some of my friends who are from here but weren't here that week have kind of like a little like guilt that they weren't here. It's a very interesting thing, but it's definitely still a huge topic and a huge issue even 3 years later. So, but yeah, we were worried this year because people were saying the ocean is warm, which I guess can make more hurricanes. There were a lot of hurricanes in this season in general, but luckily nothing in Puerto Rico. So
Wow.
but we still have all our canned food ready just in case. So because you know, during Maria, people didn't have. I was thinking like with a pandemic and a hurricane, it's just like extra disaster, and it was already hard to get food at the beginning of the pandemic. Now everything's fine pandemic wise as far as things go. But you know, but in the beginning, I was like, this is extra scary.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But thank you. Any other questions?
I do have one. If I let my challah rise and do the initial rise and then do the braid, and I don't feel like staying up long enough to bake it, can I just stick it in the fridge braided and then pop it in the oven in the morning?
Yes, yeah, you could do that too. I don't usually do that, but I think that would work. I'm like 99% sure that would be fine. I think so.
Let it come to room temperature before I pop it?
Let it come to room temperature again. Yeah, probably I wouldn't do it as long to room temperature, maybe like, you know, 45 minutes or so. And
okay.
Yeah. Actually, I would not do, so if you're gonna do the first rise tonight and then braid it, I would just stick it right in the fridge, not do the second rise. And then tomorrow bring it to room temperature and let it rise more. I would do that. That would be good.
Braided. Okay, all right.
So, yeah, if you're gonna, either one. So either do the first rise tonight, stick the dough in the fridge, and then let it come to room temperature, braid it, rise it again. Or you can braid it tonight, stick the braid in the fridge, let it come to room temperature, rise, bake. I think any of those will work.
Okay. Oh, all right, great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Well, will it work if you put it in an airtight container instead of just the bowl with a towel on it?
Yeah, I think that should be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
You probably don't even have to seal. You could kind of just put the top on like relaxed. I don't think you have to seal it in there.
If you make a large amount, can you freeze the dough?
You can freeze dough, yes. That'll work as well. I've frozen baked challahs. That works. Actually, I made the challah for our wedding. I made a rainbow challah, which is one of my first challahs on my blog. I did like probably almost 10 years ago now. So I made my mom had the idea to do a rainbow challah for our wedding, but we got married in Michigan, where my husband's from. And I made the challah with my mom and my bubby, which is very special, in Connecticut. So we baked the challah, let it cool, wrapped it really well. And like we did a layer of saran wrap and a layer of foil, froze it. And then my mom took it out, let it defrost, and she carried it on the plane like a little baby passenger. Like it was like her carry-on bag, and it looked perfect. Like you would never have known, and it tasted perfect. So anyway, you can freeze a baked challah, you can freeze dough. I know a lot of people who do challah every week will make a large batch and freeze portions and then take it out, let it come to room temperature and do it from there too. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you can kind of stop at different points with challah if you're not gonna just do it all at once. But normally I think like the best method is to do it all in one day in terms of like ease and taste and everything. But the other methods will work as well. There are options. I know everyone's busy, though. It does seem like a lot of people are making more challah because they're at home all Friday, working from home. So I've seen a lot more challah questions on my blog than ever before, which is cool. So a lot of people have been making challah.
So I have a crazy question. I'm cleaning up and I realized we didn't put the salt in. Is that a problem?
I realized I didn't put the salt in my challah. That was my fault. I was like, my salt is right here. I did not put the salt in either. So
Okay.
I'm sorry. That is definitely my fault because I did not say salt. I said that, I remember saying the salt, so I was like, don't put the salt in the beginning, and then I was chatting and forgot to put the salt in. So it'll be fine. It won't be, it's like, it won't have the salty flavor. So what I would do is, you know, sprinkle a little salt when you're eating it if you like that. I'm sorry, that was totally my.
But it won't hurt. It
my
won't
mistake.
hurt the rising or anything.
No, actually salt like can hurt the rising if you put it on too soon. So it's salt 100% just for flavor. So
Okay.
it won't affect anything but the taste.
So it'll
taste good anyway, honestly. It's like if you forgot salt in a cookie, it kind of enhances the sweet a little bit. So, and it'll still taste fine, but I would probably just sprinkle a little salt. And so, or if you're using like the everything bagel spice, you have a little salt on the outside, which I think would be good too. So I am sorry, I got distracted.
Oh, don't worry. Oh, that's all right. We looked at it. We said, "Oi, when were we supposed to?"
Oi, that is my fault. Oi, I have my salt too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I am sorry. That's it. If you're gonna miss an ingredient, that's the good one to miss. It'll just affect the flavor.
Were we supposed to put in the 2 jars of honey or just 1?
Yes, the 2 jars. That'll also be fine.
Okay.
If you want to put 1 in, yeah. It'll just be a little less sweet, but this is a sweet challah anyway. I think it's sweeter than I like a sweet challah, so it'll be perfect. That's fine.
If my challah If my challah is only oven rising for like 20 minutes, can I just add the salt now and re-knead it back in?
Yeah, you could try. That would probably work. You could try that. That's a good idea. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I might do that too.
Are all breads as forgiving as challah?
Most breads, yeah, I think I definitely never always use a slightly different flour amount for that reason. Yeah, actually, I think you could need. Yeah, I'm gonna need in my salt in now too. Good idea. Yeah, any kind of bread. I think my favorite like forgiving bread is focaccia. That's like a little stickier dough, but that's like a really easy beginner bread to make. But usually I never measure the exact flour because it can always just be a little different. Like when I'm in Puerto Rico, I definitely use more flour than when I'm home in Connecticut and it's cold. So I think the flour can always differ a little bit, and things like most of the ingredients like the yeast and the flour and the eggs you need, but the amount of eggs can differ, which just changes the texture a little bit. The sugar is really for the flavor so that you can add as much or as little as you want. Some recipes have sugar and no honey or honey and no sugar. You can add a little brown sugar, will change the flavor. So all these ingredients will just, change the texture and change the flavor, but there's really just different recipes. Kind of like if you looked up chocolate chip cookies, there's like 100 different recipes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they all have slightly different, texture depending on what you like. And this challah is I would say is richer because of the eggs. There's more egg yolks in here, which gives it a richer flavor, and it has probably more sugar. I think it has sugar like when you get when I get a challah at synagogue, it's always sweet, and you're like, why is it so sweet? It's sugar. They put more sugar in it, and it's delicious. So it's really not that much sugar divided in the whole. You're not gonna eat the whole challah, so I think it's fine. So whoever had the idea to knead in the salt now, that was a really smart idea. I was like, oh yeah, of course. I looked at my braided one and kind of forgot I had this one already. So I just kneaded in the salt. If you forgot the salt, it worked great. Very good idea. I'm sorry about that. See, even professionals make mistakes. Actually, I did that on purpose because cooking is just fun, and you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna burn things, but it's just food. And I think people get, especially who aren't used to cooking or baking, bread can be a little intimidating. They're worried they're gonna mess it up. Mm-hmm. But it's supposed to be fun and create memories, and it's just food. If you mess it up, you can throw it away and order pizza. But I think a lot of people when they're cooking for holidays, I get a lot of nervous questions. Like I've never hosted before, and people are there to see you, probably for the matzo ball soup on Passover. But like everything else is just gravy on top. So it's if your brisket falls apart or it's too dry or something, it's just food. It's fine. Really? People are just gonna remember the happy times. So if you forget your salt and your challah, it's not the worst thing going on in the world right now. So it'll be fine. Just knead it in and move on. Yeah. So that was not on purpose, but I appreciate it.
So we wanted to, Amy, so we've been recording this and I'm going to be able to put this on YouTube first thing in the morning for us to watch in our temple. So if you didn't follow or you got lost somewhere, you'll be able to rewatch this. And also you'll be able to fast forward to Amy's amazing braiding techniques.
Yeah, you can watch that, you can pause.
Yeah.
Don't forget the salt if you didn't do that part. So,
Yeah.
Follow the recipe too. But yeah, and if you have any other questions tomorrow or anytime, you can email me. It's amy@whatdouwannaeat.com, or you can message me, DM me on Instagram if you're on Instagram. I check that a lot. So I'm happy to answer questions anytime.
That's pretty impressive because you're pretty close to 50,000, aren't you?
Like 42, I think, almost 42. So it's
That's pretty cool.
It's good. I like, but and I try not to be on all day, but it's addicting. It's, you know, and I want to help people. I'm like, I can answer your questions, but a lot of comments I get are just like, yum, you know. So those are fine.
Does anybody have any last questions before we end?
Just a huge thank you, which is
Thank you. This is a lot of fun, and everyone was
so much.
Great.
And
it looked like you did a good job. Thank you, and I definitely show me your challahs tomorrow.
Yes, everybody should post pictures of their challahs.
Yeah, post pictures, or if you tag me on Instagram, or or just share with the group. And the Shabbos Project is their Shabbat tomorrow. I did an event with them a few years ago. I called it Jewchella. It was like Coachella meets Shabbat. Kind of encourage the Shabbat together event. So that was really fun.
For extra credit, bring your challahs to our very brief Kabbalat Shabbat. It's a family-friendly Kab Shab at 5:30 tomorrow. You can find the Zoom link on our website. We'll make sure it's there first thing in the morning. Under what? Under the events. So click on the date. Tomorrow's Friday the 6th. And you'll see the Kab Shab with Rabbi Jeremy Winokur from Delaware, who's teaching in our religious school right now. So we're going to have a very short Kab Shab, light candles together, say Kiddush, say blessings, and then be ready for dinner. So bring your challahs so that we can make motzi and Kiddush over our fresh challah tomorrow. Oh, and then Saturday night, as part of the Shabbat Project too, we're going to have Havdalah Babayit, which is going to be hosted by the DeCourcy family, and you'll find all the prayers and everything on our website too. So that's going to be, I don't remember what time. It's 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock at the end of Shabbat. So sorry, it's been a long day, guys. So thank you to everybody who came.
And also they have this prayer.
Oh, you also have the Shabbat prayers in your kit for tomorrow. So
thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank
Stay tuned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next baking adventure together. We'll do another one soon.
Thanks, Bethel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Bye.